Hey guys, it's Michelle, and I'm so excited to be with you to talk to you about content marketing, answering your questions there. And it just hit me that, I don't know, I didn't finish my makeup. I was trying to get pretty for you guys and it didn't work, but I'm so excited to be here and answer your questions. I do have questions that have come in. I've tried to condense them really so that we get through this in a decent amount of time. But I also would love for your questions to come in. So definitely, put them in the comments below. And it's the only way I'd see them, unfortunately, now, if you put them in the comments. And share this if you'd like, if you have people who should be watching this live stream to learn about content marketing and how important it is, but also mainly how to do it right? Because we are entrepreneurs, and that means that we tend to understand how important content marketing is. Now, if I were talking to like a corporate entity, we might not really, I might have to actually like convince them that that it's worthy of their time, or they should be doing content marketing. As entrepreneurs, coaches, therapists, attorneys, like even physicians, like we kind of tend to get that it's really important to do. And so I'm going to wait for your questions to come in. I would love to see them. And I am going to try to share this with my personal page. You guys share it too if you know people who should be getting this information. And then again, like the only way I'll see your questions is if they come in via comment. Some people did comment earlier, and some people sent me private messages. So I've kind of condensed them so that we can tackle the most important stuff. So let me, share this. Oh shoot, it messed me up. Hey Tammy, Alice, and Tammy, I'm excited. Tammy Sproul, I'm excited to see you this week. We are getting ready to plan some couple time, so that's exciting. Okay, I'm gonna share now, public. Okay. All right, perfect. So I cannot wait to dig in. I want to go ahead and start right from the beginning about one of the most, this is the second most common question that came in various different variations, right? A lot of these questions came in and they were kind of positioned as like these long stories about all the stuff that you've done and that the content marketing didn't work. And so I just wanted to tackle the question, will content marketing work for me? The subset of this question was, why hasn't it worked for me? I've been super consistent. I've been doing it. I've been following the rules, and it's just not working for me. And so I want to dive into that right now. So the inherent belief of everybody who wrote in with some variation of this question is that it does work and it should work, only it's not working. So what's going on with this, right? Like that is how these questions are coming in. And so I just want to address this. If you're showing up consistently, like one, kudos to you. If you're showing up consistently, but you are showing up in a way that's like, I show up once a month and I've been consistent with that, or even once a week, it can actually just be a waste of your time at that level. And I don't mean that to be very frustrating. I apologize. I have my grand dog here and he is a little bit disruptive. Just 1 second. You guys type your questions in. Hopefully you guys cannot hear him with my office door closed. So the key really isn't just showing up and being consistent. There has to be a strategy beyond that. And there's a million different ways to do content marketing. I can't tell you, I've done it a million different ways, but I have worked with probably at least 1,000 people just on their content marketing. And there are 3 commonalities that are lacking. One, or mostly, a lot of times, all of these things that are lacking when you are showing up consistently, even daily, but it is not moving the needle in your business. In other words, you're showing up and doing the work, and people are not like jumping on and saying, I want to work with you, right? So, and I just want you to kind of consider your own post. Consider them from an outsider's perspective, okay? So the first thing is you've got to be creating content with authority, right? With authority. Now, as women, a lot of times we are a little bit shy in claiming our authority, right? We're a little bit shy in really claiming exactly why we should be the person that that we're listening to or that they're listening to. We are shy on naming and claiming our authority. And we don't have to like show up and name it, but we do have to speak with authority, right? And this is an energetic thing. So if you don't feel like you have authority in your niche or your industry, then that's going to come through. I will tell you the way it comes through. And this is the most heartbreaking of all for me in particular to watch. And that is when people are showing up with a please see me, please validate me kind of energy, right? Like they're showing up and they're going through the motions, but the truth is they're, somewhere back there, they're hoping that their content marketing works, i.e. like get some clients. But the truth is their heart need, which is coming through is like, am I cool enough? Am I validated enough? Am I smart enough? Do you think I'm good enough? And it's like, it'll take away any authority you have. It doesn't matter to me if you're a surgeon or a doctor or a lawyer or a coach or an author or a speaker or, anything else, right? Like what matters to me is, do you show up as if I've got nothing to prove? Have you identified your area of authority, right? Like it doesn't have to be huge. I mean, I say it all the time. Like my expertise, my authority is like an inch wide, if that, but it is a mile deep, right? So I can stand really firmly in my own authority. And that obviously comes through in my content. So how is your authority? One, is it demonstrated? Not just by what you say and how you say it, but also by how you're showing up. Do you show up as someone that should be listened to, right? So that's the first thing. You might want to ask yourself, if you're showing up consistently, are you lacking authority, right? Are you still in this mode of like proving? And let me just put it out there to you guys. If you are considering things like, let me think, doing things for free. If you are 40 plus years old and you are still like, well, I'm going to build my resume. The resume building's over, chick. Like, let's go ahead and make some money out there. So the authority is a huge one. Now, another thing to ask, if you are doing content marketing regularly, consistently, is, are you doing it with alignment? And as I was preparing for week 1, actually, of my Content to Cash program, when I was marketing it, I only came up with 2 different ways to be in alignment with your content marketing. But as I was preparing for the people who signed up for the program, it's really 3. So the first it's authenticity, right? Like, is your content marketing in alignment with your beliefs, right? Now, I am an entrepreneur and a small business owner, right? I make money by selling to the marketplace. So if I were all of a sudden out there like championing socialism, that would not be in alignment with like who I am and what I do. Right? So is it an alignment? Is it authentic positioning is the first thing, right? The second thing is it in alignment with your goals? In other words, a lot of times we show up, we might even be speaking with authority, we're showing up consistently, but we're not making sure that the content is in alignment with our goals. In other words, we haven't charged the content with anything. We haven't deployed it with an assignment. We act as if showing up, which is just the price of admission, by the way, we act as if showing up is somehow magically over time going to do something for us. And the truth is, time does have a little bit to do with it, right? So like, I'm a grizzled veteran here. I've been doing this a long time. And part of my magic is that I just didn't stop, right? But for a lot of us, we think that time in and of itself is going to make the difference, and it's not. So we need to make sure that what the content we're providing is aligning with what we want people to do, what step we want them to take. And so our content marketing should be answering the question, what do people need to know, believe, and do in order to cheerfully pay money to work with us, join our program, visit our office, whatever it is, right? So our content must not only be authentic to us, but it should also be aligned with what we want them to do. The third way your content should be aligned, which I actually didn't think about until I started creating week 1, it should also be aligned with your market's goals. Your market's goals. And so it's funny because I don't know the word without being totally honest about it. I used to kind of poo-poo on sales pages and coaches who would help women entrepreneurs get branded or get get prepared or get everything, all their ducks in a row and all that. And I used to really poo-poo on that. And then it hit me, wait a minute, that message resonates with some women entrepreneurs who have labeled themselves as entrepreneurs, but who don't really want to have to sell anything, right? Their bills are paid elsewhere, and they get a lot of momentum and excitement and enjoyment out of the branding stuff and the constant prep mode. And because their bills are paid elsewhere, they don't really want somebody who's talking to them about making money like I do, right? They're not really interested in that. But the truth is, so in my content is very much aligned with my market's desire to get paid what they're worth, right? To have their income reflect the value that they give in the world. And so both of those, the sales pages I poo-poo on and my own, the truth is they're just speaking to different markets. They're each in alignment with a different market. So, and the last thing that you've got to have in your content marketing is allure, right? You should be entertaining and I don't know another word, but alluring to your market, right? You can't bore them. The biggest sin in marketing is the same as the biggest sin in marriage, I think. It's just being boring, right? If you're boring, then people aren't going to even look. They're not going to, when they see your name, they're going to kind of start to anticipate what you're going to say, and they're going to think it's boring, and they're going to keep scrolling, and you're going to wonder why you keep showing up and doing content and no one's paying attention. You have bored them to an internet death. Right? And so when you are combining this authority with alignment in all those 3 areas and allure, then you've got a content marketing strategy that will start working quickly, but also just gain tons of momentum and steam over time. All right. Again, if you guys have any questions for me about content marketing and you haven't already sent them in, please put them in the comments below so I can answer them. So the second thing that came in, this is actually not the second thing, it's on my list as the second thing, but it's the most common question that I got about content marketing. And that is, how often should I create content? And the energy with this one is, how little can I get away with, right? What is the least often I have to talk to my market in order to make a bunch of money from them, right? And it's just kind of the wrong way to look at the question, right? You want to look at your content marketing as a conversation, right? So don't always look for the bare minimum. Like, how little do I have to talk to my kids in order to for them to turn out to be great people? Or how little do I have to speak to my spouse or have sex with my spouse or eat dinner with my spouse in order to keep the marriage together, right? It's just like when you start thinking well, how often do I have to do that? Already you are starting to demean your message, right? It's not lighting you up. It's not going to light them up, and you feel like it's drudgery, right? And so we don't want to think about it like that. One of the things that I am doing in the Content to Cash program is making sure that every person walks away with a content strategy that they can't not, right? A content strategy that they love, that lights them up, because we don't want to look at it as how little can I get away with, right? That's a lot of these questions that's the spirit of some of these questions that came in. And I'm not dissing that. I used to have the same exact questions, how little do I have to do? What are the bare minimums, right? So it's sort of talking to the admissions office, for college my son wants to get into, and what is the minimum SAT score that guarantees admission? But anyway, so how often should I create content? The answer really is as often as possible. You want to show up to your market, show up for your market. You want to keep demonstrating your authority and how you can help. But mainly you want to stay in conversation with these people. You want to show up like you care. You want to show up like this is your jam. You want to show up like you enjoy it. You want to show up like this is your passion, right? Immediately, when you've designed a content marketing strategy around what lights you up, then you immediately get away from, well, how little do I have to do it? Because you're like, how much is too much, right? That's what, sometimes I think, well, maybe I should hold this for another day. I've gone live twice today, or I've gone live in a blog post and whatever. And it's like, you know what? You need a content marketing strategy that lights you up. But if you don't have it right now, how often should you create content? As often as you can. Think of it as a conversation. It does not have to be super long. It does not have to be super polished. It is a conversation, right? And you think about this in terms of like getting a job. So if you are trying to get a job, there's two ways to go about it, right? Like one is making sure your resume is perfect and your cover letter is perfect and all of that. But most jobs are achieved in just casual conversations through networking, showing up and having these conversations earlier on, so that then when they need to hire somebody, they come to you. Do you understand the difference, right? And we spend all of our time thinking like every blog post or every podcast or everything else is like this perfectly polished resume that's going out there. And that's the wrong way to look at it. It's just too much pressure and it takes the fun out of it. So if you are feeling like, well, I love my content matter and I'm passionate about it, but it takes me so long to write or produce or whatever, like the short answer is, you're making it too difficult. It doesn't have to be perfect. It needs to be a conversation. I'm going to move on to the third question, and you guys put in a comment if you have any questions. And these are not in any particular order, but this next one came in a lot of different ways, right? What types of content are the most effective, right? Like what's the hot thing now? What's the it piece of content now? And the answer to this is it depends, right? So writing for me is not just like my gift, but it's like most successful people in any industry are readers. And Women Who Wow is full of the most successful women in most industries. And so writing definitely aligns with success-driven people, right? So that works for me. But ask anyone else, and depending on the latest trends or research or whatever they read, they might say podcasts are the most effective, reaching more people, or video or live, or back in the day it was like slide shares or slide decks or whatever, and then there might be like polish. I remember a year and a half ago everybody said video live stream is going to the more polished, right? And I'm like, well crap, it rules me out, right? And so, but the truth is I don't think it ever got there. I think people spent a lot of money on in-house studios and they're probably not getting any more traction from it, except because they spend a lot of money on the studio, they're probably spending money on advertising their show as well. But in terms of just being more polished, I don't think it made a big difference. But a year and a half ago, that's what everybody said, right? So depending on the day, depending on who you're listening to, depending on what the latest trends say, you're going to get a different answer. So I'm going to give you 3 keys to decide what your main content is going to be. So the first key is you do you. What do you like to do? What kind of content do you really like to produce? The second key is use your content with authority, alignment, and allure. And the third is mix it up. This question is a little bit aligned, it's a little bit aligned to what lingerie do men find sexiest? And it's like, well, I don't know. That depends, right? Like it depends on the man. It depends on what you feel sexiest in, right? You want to wear what makes you look the best. You want to, and also what you feel good. You also want to mix it up, right? Like you don't want to look for the answer to what some research tool indicates is the hot new thing. You do it consistently with authority, alignment, and allure, and then mix it up, right? Like right now, I have a podcast. Woo woo! Super excited about that. I've waited so long to get this podcast up. I just drug my feet until I finally figured out what it's going to be when it grew up. And that podcast is The Daily Hustle for Women Entrepreneurs. So find it wherever you listen to your podcast. But I also have a blog. I live stream. I do short posts. I do long posts. I do image-based posts. Like, I just do whatever comes up, right? So mix it up. Don't focus so much on your trends. Be aware of them, certainly be aware of them, but don't be handcuffed by them. You still want to do you. And let me tell you, the trends are always going to change. And so if you're focused and only on following the trends, one, you're always going to get there a little bit too late. And two, you're going to get out of just you being you. So I want to tell you what is going to be covered in week 1. Then we'll get back to some questions. So week 1 of the Content to Cash program. And this is the subtitle for that, if I remember it, is the habits, hacks, and how-tos of profitable content marketing. Just in week 1, we're covering the myths, the halfway truths, and the whole truth about content marketing, and how to immediately up your content's ability to produce money for you. Because that's really what you're doing, right? We really want to show up in a way that compels people to buy from us. Otherwise, we are wasting our time. So we're going to talk about what we've been told about content, what we have believed about content. We are really going to dive into the content strategy that was identified by the pre-work that we did. The pre-work went out and it was quite eye-opening for most people who did it. It was eye-opening because they realized that some of them didn't have a strategy, right? Their strategy was, I'm showing up and being consistent. And that is just the first place to start. They haven't really identified where their source of authority is. They haven't really identified how to align their content with specific goals. Maybe they've never even thought about that. They haven't identified how to mix it up so that they have some sort of allure to their market, right? So that is something we're covering in week 1, including the ingredients and recipe of cash creation content marketing. So we're going to go into that, but I have a couple more questions that I want to go into, and I'd love to get your questions if you have any. Let me see if they've come in. All right. So the 4th question is, what should I write or talk about topic wise, right? And so you want to ask yourself, like, well, first I'm going to back up and say that she who knows her market best wins, right? Wins the content marketing game. You should know your market more intimately than anybody else. So what should you write about or talk about or speak about or blog post about, whatever? What are they thinking about? What are they asking about? What are they secretly afraid of or frustrated with, right? Know your market better than anyone else. And then you want to write in 5 different ways, essentially. So the first thing is you want to write to equip them, right? These are the how-to posts. But listen, guys, the how-to post, unless you are a really amazing writer or speaker, should only be a little bit of what you're doing. They do demonstrate authority, so you do want to have them. But if they're always the how-to, then they're not something they can't get elsewhere, if that makes sense. So write to equip them with how-to posts. You want to write or speak to empower them, meaning they should do this. You want to empower them, not just that here's how to do it, but you should do it. Now's your time. You want to write to validate your market, to let them know that you see them and that you understand them. Validation, I feel like, in this online world is the gateway to trust. You've got to validate people, let them know that you see them and understand them, not just the little image of them or the holograph of them, but you understand the heart of who they are. You want to write to encourage your market. This is different than empowering them. Empowering them says you should do it. Encouraging them says you can do it. You're going to do it, right? And you also want to write to entertain them. This is the one thing that I came into the game, I feel like, too late with, right? So I was much more, I think that naturally I'm a little bit entertaining because I have a dry sense of humor, and I feel like I was always I shared some stuff about my life, which is entertaining, I think, in and of itself, but I didn't do it strategically. And so if I could do something over again, I would definitely be more entertaining. I would share more of Michelle than I did in the earlier days. So write to entertain your market or speak to entertain your market, video, whatever. In other words, going back to that number 1 business sin is to be boring. So don't be boring. Next question and last, if you guys do not have any other questions for me? So the last question is, how far in advance do I need to plan my own content? And this really depends on a few different things. It depends on your goals. It depends on also, though, your personality and how much control you have over your schedule. So back in the day, I used to plan I had a content calendar and everything, right? Like I always knew what everything was going to be about and what trends or what topics I was focusing on and when I was doing what. And I did this essentially to avoid having a blank page scenario going on where I looked at the page and like I got nothing, right? Like I just did that to kind of train myself to be consistent. However, I don't use a content calendar anymore. And so how far in advance I need to plan is different because I have trained myself for the muse to strike at a certain time every day, right? Like what was that quote? Like, I only write when the muse strikes. Luckily, the muse strikes every day at 8 a.m., right? So it's like I trained myself to write on command, and I also am consuming a lot of information. So I'm always inspired about something to write about. And so my personality also does not require perfection. And so I'm totally fine with showing up and just giving content from the heart and letting the fire come through and the passion come through and just letting the message be the message. But it depends on your goals and also your personality. If you have most Women Who Wow members obviously don't, but if you are listening to this and you have a job, you might need to have a content calendar because you're going to have to plan ahead around your full-time job in order to get the stuff done or to show up consistently. I do find that it's better to leave some ebb and flow, even if you choose a content calendar, so that you can really kind of listen in to what the market's talking about and serve up something truly hot and fresh for your market. In Women Who Wow, I do something called the Entrepreneurial Espresso, and it is served up hot and fresh every single morning. And it really strikes a chord on a lot of mornings because people are like, how did you know? Well, I didn't know, but I show up and I've just kind of let myself be a vessel for the message, if that makes sense. Like I don't plan it in advance. In other words, my market, particularly my Women Who Wow members, they're not on my schedule, right? Like I'm listening into them, I'm peeking in on them, and I'm trying to match them, right? I want to speak to their heart where they are right now. That's where I want to meet them. And I take the same approach with my public facing content, right? So you want to, how far in advance do you need to plan? Some people plan a year in advance. I think that's outrageous. How do you even know what the world's going to look like in a full year? Things move so fast. If you had to, I might plan 3 months in advance. That's the most I'd plan in advance for specific content. And if you are in control of your schedule, you don't have a job, if you are a full-time entrepreneur, and if you have some proven consistency, I would really try kind of planning in weekly blocks and letting the daily stuff be a lot more inspired. So that's how I do it now. But starting with a content calendar is not bad. It actually trains you to be more consistent, and it'll train you to be better at whatever it is you're doing, writing, blogging, or, podcasting, doing videos, whatever. So do you guys have any questions for me before we X out of this? Let's see. All right, guys. Well, we are going to call it quits. If you guys are in the Content to Cash program, your first day of content is coming your way about 3 p.m. today. So I'm very excited to have you guys with me. If you guys went into the Content to Cash program, definitely message me. It is not too late to join, m.me/Women Who Wow. And I look so forward to talking with you guys again. So if you have any questions that come up for you after watching this, then definitely put them in the comments below and I'll get back to you guys tonight or tomorrow. Talk to you soon. Bye.